Okay, welcome back everyone. I want to do a couple more videos just on the various meanings of the subjunctive that we have seen in the book so far. Um, there's a few examples that I'd like to go over for each, but first I'd like to just start off kind of with an overview of the different types of uses of the independent subjunctive. So I have this little example here in English, and then in the next couple slides we'll go over some Latin examples. So the first bit is the exhortation or prohibition usage. So like it says here, it's similar to how an imperative works. It's just that instead of the second person, which is always how imperative works, second person singular or plural, it is with the first or third person. So let them eat cake is the third person plural because it's them. That's referring to the group of people. But it's not just a command, or it's not just a simple statement. It's a command. They must eat cake. They, they all, you all, let them eat cake. So this is an example of how an exhortation works. You could also do this with the first person. You could say, "Let me eat cake," or you could do it as a third person singular. Let him, let her, let him, let it eat cake. That's all the same idea of exhortation. It's just a first or third person imperative essentially. Um, and then the prohibition use of the subjunctive is pretty similar. Um, it's essentially just another way of negating an imperative, but instead of using the traditional method that we've seen so far with noli and an infinitive, now we have a use with the subjunctive. So we're going to see in the next slide, nay plus the subjunctive, the present or the perfect subjunctive can negate a command. So yeah, we'll get to look at that in just a second though. And then the other three uses, there is what's called a deliberative subjunctive, and this is essentially the key idea here is doubt or deliberation, a question. Um, the way to sort of think through this is it's easiest to sort of compare the indicative versus the subjunctive version. Um, So the indicative version of this would be, am I eating cake? Just a normal question. It isn't necessarily doubtful or representing any lack of information, but the subjunctive version here is really casting doubt. Really what it's asking is, should I eat cake or not? Am I to eat cake? What would be the ramifications of it? What are the different possibilities that could arise if I ate cake? So it's really the idea behind this is doubt or wondering whether this is the right thing to do. So that's deliberation. Um, there's another common use as well, not quite as common as these two, but the subjunctive of wish, um, which essentially is a desire or a want or a need. It can also be used the subjunctive can also express this. So essentially, you can use these two different types of phrases: if only or I wish that. Um, and in English, they introduce this subjunctive clause here, and we'll see that in Latin we actually don't need this phrase "I wish" or "if only." It's merely just part of how English works. We'll see that when we get into some more examples, but this is the basic idea. I really, really want that I could eat cake, or I wish that I could eat cake. Um, and so yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit more detail later. And then this final use that we're going to look at in this chapter is the potential subjunctive. And what's really the basis of this is the hypothetical, or what is possible. Um, so essentially, if you want to think about this, the simpler way I think to understand this is as the then part of an if-then statement. But the if part, there is no if. Essentially, it's just I would like to eat cake. Um, if I were older, if I hadn't already eaten cake, I would. If I hadn't already eaten dinner, I would like to eat some cake. Um, but essentially, this potential idea is just representing the then part of a conditional statement without the if. But like I said, we'll take a look at a few more examples in the next few slides, possibly the next video. Okay, so the first thing I have is just a few examples of the exhortation and prohibition in Latin. So I'll just start off with going through a few of these examples. There's a few little rules that I've written up just to help you sort of understand what the textbook is saying. But basically, the idea is that an exhortation is a command in the first or the third person, singular or plural, and it's used with the present subjunctive most commonly. And then and a prohibition is then a negative command in the second person, and it is used with the present or the perfect subjunctive. And finally, something that we haven't seen is the negation of an exhortation, or really for most subjunctive uses, is the particle ne. And we'll see that with this prohibition use as well. So, but let's take a look at a couple of these Latin examples. I've written up the indicative versus the subjunctive version just to compare the different ways of understanding these types of clauses. So the first example is the farmer is sending, or he is not sending. Just it doesn't matter. It's just the idea. The verb here is indicative. A pig into the field, and that's a typo there. That should be agrum. So the farmer is sending a pig. This is a statement of fact. It isn't. There's no question or doubt. It's just that's what he's doing. But then when we look in the subjunctive section, we see when we change our verb to mitat, the present subjunctive. So note that it's just the I changes over to an A, and that gives us our subjunctive. This actually changes the game a little bit. It actually means something quite a bit different. No, not quite a bit, but definitely it has a different meaning than the indicative version. So the farmer, may he send, or let him send a pig into the field. So this is an example of our exhortation, or our third person command. Let him send a pig into the field. This is a command. This is someone asking a farmer to send a pig into the field. It's not necessarily just the farmer sending a pig into the field, but it's someone actually wanting this to happen. And then we have our. If you wanted to negate it, you could use the particle ne. Let him not. All right. So, and then our next example is somewhat similar. It is gratias deis agimus. So we are giving thanks to the gods. Recall ago plus gratias is this. It's a special sort of phrase that means to thank or give thanks to. And the gods is just the dative of reference there. We are giving thanks to the gods. And then in our subjunctive version, the exhortation, it is an exclamation or a command, or someone asking people to do this. Gratias deis agamus. Let us give thanks to the gods. I.e., all of you give thanks to the gods. So this is a third, sort of a first-person plural way of saying, hey, you group of people with me, let's all give thanks to the gods. So this is another example of how the subjunctive can work. There's also Gaudeamus Igitur is a famous church hymn, if you're familiar with that as well. It's often sung for graduations and different sorts of things, but Gaudeamus Igitur is another use of the subjunctive of gaudeo in this similar way. So that's just for fun. All right, and then in our final example, we have an indicative. I have another indicative here, but it's actually a prohibition. So I have our verb nolita inira, sine gladio in silvam. So this is our usual way of saying a prohibition or negating an imperative. So you all do not go in ira. This is neo, the infinitive of it, which is usually how you form this type of negation, into the forest sine gladio, without a sword. And when we look at our subjunctive version of this, it's a little bit different, but it expresses a kind of a similar idea. So in silvam sine gladio ne eneatis, here we have our present subjunctive in the second person plural, and it's negated with the ne. So may you all not, or just simply do not, go into the forest without a sword. So even though they're expressed in two different ways, it still overall is a similar idea. So I think I'll go ahead and end this video here. In the next one, I'll go over some examples of the deliberative subjunctive. All right, thank you.